It's been a few weeks, I think about 3 weeks or so since I talked about the BladeGC. I did a video where I received 3 of them, all, one of each color from Castlemania Games. Retro Fighters, they sent me the BladeGC for purpose of review. They did not send me these ones, but I did communicate with them and wound up sending them back 2 of them so they could take a look and see what was going on. Because in that video, essentially, it wasn't really like a review video. It was like, hey, I'm having issues 2 out of the 3. That seems really bad. And I wanted to just, let people be aware, like, hey, these are the things to look out for. These are the issues. If it was 1 out of 3, it would have been more focused on actually using the controllers. But 2 out of 3, I had to focus on the defects, the negatives, so people could see and double check the ones they got, because it seemed like these were very popular. And that's the way I go about my videos with these things, is they're reviews essentially, but it's my experience. And some people, they don't, they kind of are like, well, why would you post a video when you got a problem with something? Well, because I want people to be aware. Having 2 out of 3 controllers have issues with the analog sticks, the ranges, them getting stuck, being offset. I feel the public needs to know, and I don't care who the company is or what the product is. I'm going to share my actual experience using it, and that's what I did with that video. And Retro Fighters reached out to me like, hey, we would like to check those 2 controllers out. Like, this seems crazy. And I know Castlemania Games and Retro Fighters pulled a bunch of stuff from their inventories and tried to see if anything had the same problems I was having. And from what I'm understanding, they weren't finding this issue. And Retro Fighters themselves said that they only, after my video went live and, between the release of these, they only had like a couple people have the same issue as me, and they either, they offer a refund or an exchange type of thing. So yeah, I sent these out to them. They fixed the black one. They said it was an issue with something. It could have just been something wasn't syncing properly, and they repaired it to the dongle, and they said everything worked perfectly fine. But the orange one that I had, they couldn't fix it. It was like obviously a manufacturing issue with it. And it just seemed like this was a rare occurrence is the way it seemed. But yeah, I just have to share, how things go when I receive a product, because that's only fair. Castlemania Games, like the ones I got sent from Castlemania Games, they weren't like cherry picked or anything. They were just pulled from his inventory. So that was alarming to me. And I felt it was necessary to let people know, and that's just how it goes. Some companies, they get pissed when you share negatives or defects or issues, but to me, it's important, man. Like, if it's something that's publicly available and that's what my experience is, that's what I'm going to share with you guys. So, I sent these off the Retro Fighters. I didn't have a problem with the purple one. But okay, I got this plugged in now. First time I'm using the orange controller. But yes, they did send me, Retro Fighters themselves, they sent me replacements for the black and the orange one that I had issues with. So I figured, let's go ahead and actually share my thoughts on this controller with you guys. So I've been using the purple one a lot. This one, the BladeGC. And I do have my thoughts between the 2, which one I prefer, but let's get into it. So first time using this, I just, reset the system, plugged in the dongle, synced it. The analog sticks, they seem to be registering fine. Their ranges, and actually I'm kind of surprised, this one, it's just boom, instant. Some other controllers, I would have to like kind of really focus on getting exactly right to make sure that 127, 128, whatever the range is, would register without anything hitting on that side. But yeah, these seem to be good, the analog sticks. Then all the buttons are registering. So really, I don't have, like, between any of these controllers, I don't really have too much an issue using their analog sticks. Now, original controllers, the analog stick ranges are going to be different than these, just the way it goes with any third-party controller. But let's go ahead and jump into a game. So this one, the BladeGC, specifically, it's not, like, you could use it for any GameCube game. You could use it on the Switch, whatever. You use it on plenty of systems. It comes with a USB dongle as well. But this one in particular with the bigger D-pad, it's more suited to be used with the Game Boy player. So that's what I want to focus on with this one, because it has the bigger D-pad here. And then the one question that I pose to myself when a third-party option comes out is, would I be willing to pay a premium for the original version that this controller is trying to mimic? Or would I pay the lower price for a brand new controller, a third-party controller? And that's always a tough thing. Some companies nail it, some companies don't. And it's really just going to be up to you. But I do have one issue with this controller that I kind of mentioned in my other video that really makes this particular one not a controller that I really feel comfortable using all the time. Even with like these not having an issue, and most of them shouldn't from the way it seems, just I had bad luck. But I don't like the D-pad. I just really don't. I tested it before and was able, like in Street Fighter, to do moves and whatnot. But I really focused on, with the purple one, I said it's the first time using this one, the same controller. I really focused on, why do I not like this D-pad? And that's what I want to talk about real quick here. Let me turn the volume down here. It's kind of loud. But, you know, everybody's going to have their preference is one thing I have to say with D-pads. And for me, I did mention in the other video, like, I don't like how slippery it feels. But it's like, it's not like it's a slick plastic, like you're, you know, lick your finger and it's going to slide around or anything, or just, you know, it's just so slippery you don't even have to do that and it's going to slide around. The problem for me that I discovered, and I can do moves, but it's just not comfortable. I could get like, acclimated to it, and which I have been because I've used the other one quite a bit. But preference-wise, as far as D-pad, like I always like, let me pause that for a quick second, the Nintendo style and the 8BitDo style D-pads, you know. 8BitDo's nailed it in my opinion. Not everybody's going to share that opinion, but it's my experience. And I can pull off moves with this, and this feels really nice in my opinion. And it's like the material could be almost the same as this D-pad, but let me demonstrate why, what my preference for the D-pad. So I can roll moves and whatnot, and I could still feel like, hey, I'm gonna go up and hit up. I could feel up. I could feel each individual direction. I could press down in the middle, and it's not gonna register every button. It's just gonna register wherever I'm pushing at. And the same thing with this, not gonna like register every direction. It's whatever angle you're pointing at. But it's just, to me, it's so much more substantial feeling the D-pad, knowing, oh, okay, up, left, right. And I'm, you know, it's not like my brain's going to be confused if I'm hitting up. I think I'm pressing left, but it just, I could feel it. There's that feel to everything. It's comfortable to me. With this one, it's like my finger slides around. That's really what the problem is. My finger slides around. So I want to kind of go in a little more detail on that. Is whatever direction you press, the D-pad sinks down to the level of the body of the controller. So that's why it feels like I'm sliding around, because I am, because it just becomes one big indented button that is flush with the actual controller housing. And that does not feel good to me. I don't like this D-pad at all. One of my least favorite D-pads. I can use it, but I just don't like it. And that's just the way it goes. Everything else functions great. And it does boil down to like, hey, you know, the Wavebird exists. I have 2 Wavebirds, and they work perfectly fine. I don't like their little D-pads on those. So it's like I have other options. I'll use a wired controller, that kind of thing. But, you know, Wavebirds are a little pricey nowadays. You know, $80 to $100. These are like $40, $45, something like that for either version. And I much prefer this one, even though I use my GameCube a lot for Game Boy games. I would have really liked this to have a solid D-pad, but I just don't like it. And that's, like, it's not like the D-pad doesn't work. It's just I don't like it. I don't like the feel of it. I don't like how it just goes flush with the entire thing. I wish more companies would just say, hey, let's just do what 8BitDo does. That, I mean, maybe they want to stand apart, but that's just the way it is, you know. And these guys, you know, Retro Fighters, they've always been cool with me. You know, I was the one who bitched about the Brawler 64 when it first came out. I backed their Kickstarter, and I found issues with that controller. With, like, I think it was like the analog stick grinding on the trigger or something like that, and it would mess with certain games. And I hate it. I would say, this is ridiculous. And that was where my relationship with Retro Fighters started. And, you know, I criticized a lot of things that they'd done, and they took that to heart and was like, yeah, let's fix this. Let's fix it. And they did fix it, right? So if there was some kind of fundamental issue here where something just didn't work right, I'm sure they would fix it, but it just boils down to preference. And my preference is not this D-pad. You know, so that's just the way it goes. Hopefully, I mean, in the future, I think that's with their controllers, they've consistently gotten better, I think, with certain things. But for me, a nice D-pad is really important, and I don't think they nailed it with these at all, unfortunately. But there's still good options. Like I said, I prefer the Battler over the Blade to use it in GameCube games with the analog sticks and whatnot. But some people will have criticisms of this, and that's fine. Not every option is going to be for every person. I just share my real thoughts, like, hurt feelings or not hurt feelings, or, people agreeing with me or disagreeing with me. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to talk about the things that I think, and that's it. So appreciate you guys. Bye.